I am helping fundraising for medtech, health tech, and biotech teams. And what I would like to talk about today is the problems and the possible solutions, how we can mitigate these problems, and to understand these problems not only on the symptom level, but to understand why these problems occur. So the biggest problem we all perceive is that the financing, the funding of medtech, health tech is not very efficient right now. And if we understand why, we do have a chance on all sides to mitigate that. To be able to understand why the current system is so inefficient, we need to step a little bit back. So whenever we want to make a business work, I think that one of the biggest components is acquiring the ability to think with other people's head. In this particular case, with the people's head who will fund us, and understand how they work, what are their goals, their KPIs. So I still work with a lot of early teams who conceptualize VCs as money bags, so very wealthy, high worth individuals who are running around and don't know what to do with their money. But the reality is very different. And to understand and mitigate our own problems when looking for funding, we need to understand how a VC firm works. So VCs are run by general partners, GPs, who may or may not put their own money into the company, but basically they also need to raise money from the so-called LPs, the limited partners. So the point is that it is just an investment opportunity for relatively high worth individuals. So we need to be aware whenever we run for VC money, it is the VC firm is in competition with other forms of investment opportunities that these high net worth individuals can put their money in. So the VC firms need to be very efficient. They need to be able to deliver, and they need to be able to deliver better than a good ETF or other portfolio. So it needs to be very efficient to do that, because actually there are much more liquid ways to invest the money for these high net worth individuals. So the VC doesn't have as much room to decide as we may think. They are also bound by their promises to their limited partners. And we also need to understand that these limited partners are not able to use this money for a long time. So actually, these individuals are usually highly invested in being able to create an impact for humanity. So these are not very wealthy money bags running around, not being able what to do with their lot of money, but very conscious people who would like to use their wealth to make an impact and to help patients in the end. But the VC firm is responsible for them. So that said, we need to understand that how VC fund, what is the difference between a VC fund and a VC firm. So VC firms have different funds, and one fund is one big bucket of money from a lot of LPs. And the point is that this fund has a life cycle, and this life cycle is usually between 8 to 12 years. So let's say roughly 10. And we are in medtech and health tech. So we know that our development cycle is longer than that. It's very unlikely, unless we do have a lifestyle type of application or something like that, which is not really a medical device, or something which is not really a medication, just a nutraceutical. But if we have something hardcore, which needs regulatory, which needs public healthcare procurement, and live through all of that, the timelines are simply, so the math is not mathing. It's very unlikely that we can exit within the fund life cycle. So the first important message that I would like to deliver is that we need to reach out to VC only who understands regulatory, who understands the timelines needed to develop this type of asset. Because if we just reach out to generalist VCs, in the beginning, of course, they will love the idea, because the ideas are usually good. They also would like to help patients. But if the math is not mathing, in a sense that it is simply impossible to get the clearance for the product and to generate enough revenue for it to make sense to do an acquisition or a merger, nothing will happen. They will just run away whenever they learn that it is simply impossible to exit before their fund is closing. But there are VC funds that are specialized for health tech, medtech, and there are VCs who understand that there may not be an exit before the fund closes, but a valuation of the company will happen, a professional valuation, and this value can be counted into the next cycle. So the point is that we need to reach out to VC who understands that business. It is important from the founder's point of view because we just cannot keep up 500 parallel quality correspondence with a lot of people. So we need to focus on the funds and on the GPs and on the LPs who are really, really not important, but make sense for us. And this is one of the biggest inefficiency in the business. The other big inefficiency that actually VCs are telling me a lot about is that back then, when a fund opened, most of the money had been handed out in the first couple of years. So the startups can start to work on their thing and get to a development level. But more and more is retained from the original big fund now for later bridging funding. So now it is start to be a rule of thumb that startups go back to their own VC funds to get the bridge funding before Series A or before the next level. Why is it that? Because health tech and medtech startups are prone to underestimate heavily the costs of regulatory, legal matters, IP portfolio maintenance, and even salaries. So they are just not realistic how much it costs to get clinicians down the table and provide advice and proper feedback, not just on a friendship basis level. What VCs who we are working with emphasizes for us is that to teach our teams to come to them with asks where the milestones are clear and we know how much money is needed for each milestone, for each company value inflection point to be reached. So the time of giving out lump sums for shiny pitch decks are over, if it ever existed in medtech. I don't think it ever existed in medtech, but there was a dot-com bubble in around the 2000s, and a lot of startup books had born at that period, and they are all over the place. But it is not for us to learn from. So the point is that now we are living in the age of milestone investing, meaning that we need to be able to break down our ask, the actual amount of money that we want to get, to very, very, very detailed sums, and be able to justify all the costs. Because, as we mentioned in the beginning, we need to be very efficient for them. And there's a third interesting thing that makes the current system a little bit inefficient. It's the reluctance of VC of wondering, or any other private equity, even angels, to wondering in the area of pre-seed seed. Because especially in Europe, there are governmental agencies and EU programs who technically started to function as seed funding. And I'm thinking about EIC programs and a lot of national programs. So if someone is not associated with a university, it is really, really hard to get seed funding nowadays. And VCs like to join into the already to projects that already have some traction at the Series A, B level in medtech, health tech. But in this case, I think that one of the mitigation methods could be to very specifically target VCs who say out loud that they would get into first rounds or second rounds as well, and maybe setting up angel syndicates if they have big enough ticket sizes. So we have a lot of inefficiencies in the current financing system, but even as startups applying for trying to get funded, we can mitigate this inefficiency by clearly communicating what is the ask for, what do we ask the money for exactly, being absolutely real and honest about our costs, our needs. How are we able to get to the milestones, and to do our homework and not to reach out to anybody and everybody who is working for a VC, whatever generalist VC that may be, or states about themselves that they are an angel investor. Be targeted, because if you are not targeted, you will burn your time and your life energy before you will even get to speak with the actual people who are in the position to fund you. So these are the things. And maybe if I have a time for a last thought about an inefficiency mitigation thought. So nowadays, the first rounds for headtech, medtech starts to look like a very mixed one. So VCs tend now to form syndicates in the early rounds as well, even though the round might be relatively small, because they utilize each other as business analysts to go over and over again the case and try to look for red flags. And VCs also started to count on these EU and government programs. So how realistic current medtech, healthtech first and second rounds look like? Let's say 50-70% private equity, 2 to 5 VCs who are in good terms with each other. So look out for that as well. So do your homework and check who invested with whom when before, and who may be nemesis of each other, and also try to secure some EU funding or other sources of funding, like Michael J. Fox Foundation or other, what is relevant to your area. So you will have a round which contains private equity, which will contain non-dilutive grant money, and maybe some other types of financing, so like a government agency loan or something like that, which is usually comes with very, very nice requirements. And this is how actually things are working out. So it's not anymore like we find one VC and they will finance us through the whole journey. So if we are aware and if we are willing to do our homework and check what are the relevant funds and check these VCs' portfolios, check our own portfolio fit with them, and are able to spell out in huge detail what we are asking this money for, then we can get financed, even though medtech, healthtech financing is one of the most inefficient and one of the hardest now because of the mismatch of the funding life cycle and drug development or medical device development life cycle.